Stop. Just stop for a moment and feel this. Every reaction you've ever had, every argument, every frustration, every time you let someone's words or actions shake you, that was power wasted. You gave it away. But what if I told you there's a way to become untouchable? To move through life while the world rages around you, calm, clear, and in control of everything that matters. Imagine never losing your peace, never giving anyone the satisfaction of seeing you react, yet quietly bending every situation to your will. That's not a dream. That's mastery. React to nothing, control everything. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how. Mastering your mind is the cornerstone of controlling everything in your life. It is the single most important skill that separates those who live under the whims of circumstance from those who bend circumstances to their will. Every reaction you have, every impulse you act upon, is a reflection of the state of your mind. If your mind is cluttered, scattered, or dominated by fear, anger, or frustration, then your life will mirror that chaos. It will mirror the instability of your thoughts, the impulsiveness of your emotions, and the weakness of your self-discipline. The first step in mastering your mind is awareness. Awareness is the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without immediately acting on them. It is the skill that allows you to see a rising wave of anger before it crashes and destroys something in your life, to notice the pull of envy before it robs you of joy, and to sense the lure of fear before it paralyzes your decisions. Awareness is like the light in a dark room. Without it, you stumble blindly through life, bumping into every obstacle, reacting to every slight, and giving away your power with every uncontrolled impulse. Awareness also requires honesty. You must be brutally honest with yourself about your weaknesses, your triggers, and the patterns that control you. Denial is the enemy of mastery. You can't control what you refuse to see, and you can't master what you refuse to admit exists. Take a moment to observe your reactions in your daily life. Notice which situations trigger a surge of negative emotion. Notice how quickly your mind jumps to conclusions, judgments, or assumptions. Recognize the habitual loops that keep you locked in cycles of reaction rather than conscious control. This is not about judgment, it's about observation. It's about understanding the blueprint of your mind so you can start rewriting it. Once awareness is established, the next step is discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is the consistent application of conscious choice over instinctive reaction. It is training your mind to pause before responding, to weigh the long-term consequences of your actions, rather than surrendering to immediate impulses. Discipline is the muscle that allows you to respond with intention rather than react with emotion. And like any muscle, it must be exercised consistently. Small daily practices, pausing before speaking, reframing negative thoughts, meditating to center your focus, build this mental muscle. Over time, these small practices accumulate into an unshakable internal strength. Control over your mind also demands the mastery of attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Most people allow their attention to be hijacked by external stimuli, news headlines, social media, gossip, criticism, or other people's drama. They react because they are focused on everything outside themselves instead of what is within their control. Mastering your mind means taking back your attention, choosing deliberately what to focus on, and refusing to allow distractions to dictate your emotional state. This requires both boundaries and selective engagement. Not everything deserves your mental bandwidth. Not every opinion, insult, or chaotic situation warrants your energy. Choosing what to engage with and what to ignore is a direct exercise of mental control. Beyond attention, mastering your mind involves mastering your emotions. Emotions are not the enemy, they are signals. Anger signals perceived injustice. Fear signals perceived threat, and desire signals perceived lack. The unmastered mind reacts impulsively to these signals, giving power to transient circumstances. The mastered mind observes these signals, acknowledges them, but does not surrender control. This requires emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate your emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them. Emotional mastery is cultivated through reflection, meditation, journaling, and self-inquiry. Each moment of pause before a reaction strengthens the habit of conscious choice over impulsive response. Furthermore, mastering your mind involves mastering your internal dialogue. The words you speak to yourself shape your reality. Self-doubt, self-criticism, and negative assumptions are chains that limit your potential. A controlled mind replaces these chains with empowering narratives, affirmations, and disciplined thought patterns. This is not mere positive thinking, it is restructuring the architecture of your inner world so that it supports your goals rather than undermining them. Another critical aspect of mastering your mind is embracing detachment. Detachment does not mean apathy or indifference. It means not allowing external circumstances, people, or outcomes to control your inner state. It is the realization that your peace and clarity are not dependent on the chaos around you. By cultivating detachment, you free your mind from the reactive impulses that keep most people trapped in cycles of frustration and anxiety. Mastering your mind also requires patience. The human brain is wired to seek immediate gratification, to respond instantly to stimuli, and to follow habitual patterns. Rewiring these instincts does not happen overnight. It requires consistent effort, self-reflection, and the willingness to fail and correct repeatedly. Patience allows you to persist in the practice of conscious control, even when progress seems slow, knowing that every small victory over your impulses compounds into lasting mastery. Discipline, focus, emotional intelligence, detachment, and patience converge in the daily practice of self-observation. The most powerful individuals in history did not achieve their influence through strength alone. They achieved it through relentless control of their own minds. They did not allow insults to derail them, fear to paralyze them, or external chaos to dictate their actions. They cultivated an inner citadel where calm, clarity, and conscious choice reigned supreme. In practical terms, mastering your mind can be approached through structured daily routines. Morning rituals, meditation, journaling, and intentional pauses throughout the day are practical tools that reinforce awareness and discipline. Each deliberate choice not to react, each moment of observation before response, each exercise in mental focus strengthens your ability to control your internal world. Over time, this internal control manifests externally. Decisions are made with precision rather than emotion, relationships are navigated with clarity rather than impulse, and challenges are faced with strategy rather than frustration. The external world begins to bend, not because it has changed, but because you are no longer reacting to it. You are operating from a position of unshakable internal authority. Mastery of the mind also cultivates resilience. Life will continue to throw unpredictable challenges, conflicts, and provocations your way. The difference between someone who is mastered and someone who is not lies in the response. The mastered individual does not crumble under pressure. They observe, adapt, and act strategically. They have trained their mind to remain a calm center amidst a storm, to evaluate options dispassionately, and to maintain focus on long-term goals instead of short-term disturbances. Furthermore, mastering the mind creates freedom. Freedom from the constant tug of external validation, freedom from the tyranny of emotional impulses, and freedom from being a prisoner of circumstance. When you control your mind, you are no longer a slave to the opinions, actions, or provocations of others. You operate from a place of self-sufficiency, clarity, and authority. Mastering the mind also has a profound impact on creativity and problem-solving. A mind that reacts impulsively is clouded by noise and distraction. A mind that is controlled can see patterns, anticipate outcomes, and devise solutions that the reactive mind cannot. By cultivating focus, patience, and calm, you unlock the capacity to think deeply, strategically, and innovatively, turning challenges into opportunities rather than sources of stress. Finally, mastering your mind requires commitment. It is a lifelong pursuit, not a one-time achievement. Each day presents new challenges, triggers, and situations that test your control. The practice of self-mastery is the continuous exercise of awareness, discipline, attention, emotional intelligence, detachment, patience, and reflection. It is choosing, moment by moment, to respond with intention rather than react with impulse, to maintain clarity in the face of chaos, and to assert control over the most powerful force in your life, your own mind. Silence is not merely the absence of noise, it is a deliberate, powerful tool that those who master themselves wield effortlessly. Most people underestimate silence because they confuse it with weakness, with indecision, or with the inability to act. But the truth is that silence is one of the most potent strategies in life, one of the few ways to maintain control when the world seeks to pull you into chaos. To speak impulsively is to surrender your power, to hand over your energy to those who would manipulate, provoke, or distract you. Every word you utter carries weight. Every reaction fuels energy in the system. If your words are driven by emotion rather than strategy, you are participating in a cycle that benefits everyone but you. Silence, on the other hand, is control. It allows you to observe the unfolding of events without being consumed by them. It allows you to listen deeply, understand the motives behind actions, and calculate your response rather than letting instinct take over. Silence gives you space to breathe, to reflect, to see clearly, to measure every word and every move before committing to action. When you cultivate silence as a habit, you begin to notice a remarkable transformation. People underestimate you. They assume that your quietness is weakness, that your calm is complacency, that your stillness is passivity. And it is in that very assumption that your power grows. The moment others misjudge you, you gain the advantage. Silence becomes a shield, a strategy, and a weapon because it conceals your thoughts, your intentions, and your inner strength. By speaking less, you reveal less. By reacting less, you give away less. By allowing the noise of the world to pass around you without touching your calm, you establish a position of authority over yourself and indirectly over others. True mastery of silence does not mean never speaking. It means knowing when to speak and when to remain still. Every interaction becomes a calculated decision. You learn to assess whether words will advance your purpose or simply feed the chaos. You learn to measure the impact of your voice, to deliver it with precision rather than scatter it with emotion. Silence allows you to listen, and listening is the gateway to understanding. When you are silent, you absorb details, motives, and intentions that would otherwise escape notice in the noise of reaction. You notice patterns, discrepancies, and subtle signals that reveal opportunities for leverage. This is why the most influential people are often the quietest ones in the room. They are not distracted by the need to prove themselves, to react, or to dominate conversations. They are focused on absorbing, analyzing, and deciding strategically. Silence also protects your energy. Every reaction, every argument, every defense drains you. Energy expended in response to provocation is energy taken away from your goals, your focus, and your progress. By choosing silence, you conserve energy, directing it toward meaningful action rather than wasteful confrontation. This is why silence is not passivity, it is efficiency. It allows you to act with precision and purpose rather than scatter yourself in reactive cycles that serve no lasting benefit. Beyond personal strategy, silence cultivates respect. People instinctively recognize strength in calmness, authority in stillness, and wisdom in restraint. When you are silent at the right moments, you create presence. Your words carry weight precisely because you speak less. Your actions gain significance because they are measured. Your mind appears untouchable because it is not constantly thrown into the turbulence of reaction. In relationships, silence can be transformative. Those who rush to explain themselves, justify their actions, or argue in every disagreement often lose influence and authority. Silence, however, allows you to observe, to choose your responses deliberately, and to avoid unnecessary conflict. It positions you as a person who is not easily manipulated, someone whose inner world is stable and deliberate. Silence is also a powerful tool against provocation. The world is full of people who seek to trigger reactions for their own gain. By refusing to react, by choosing silence over argument, you deny them the satisfaction and power they seek. This is a fundamental principle of control. He who reacts gives away power. He who remains still retains it. In moments of insult, criticism, or confrontation, silence is a statement louder than any words could be. It communicates composure, awareness, and self-control. It tells the world that your inner peace is not negotiable, that your focus is not distracted by petty provocations, and that your power lies not in aggression, but in restraint. Practicing silence requires discipline. The mind is conditioned to respond, to defend, to justify, and to react. Breaking this conditioning takes effort, mindfulness, and repeated practice. Meditation, self-reflection, and conscious pauses in daily life are tools that cultivate the habit of silence. Each deliberate moment of stillness strengthens the ability to resist reactive impulses, gradually transforming your responses from instinctive to intentional. Silence also creates space for thought and creativity. The reactive mind is constantly bombarded with noise, commentary, and distractions, leaving little room for deep thinking. Silence, by contrast, clears the clutter. It allows ideas to surface, strategies to form, and clarity to emerge. In the quiet, you can hear the subtle guidance of intuition, the signals of opportunities, and the truths that are obscured by constant chatter. Moreover, silence is a form of self-respect. By refusing to engage in unnecessary arguments, gossip, or drama, you set a standard for how others interact with you. You communicate boundaries without raising your voice. You establish an internal authority that does not require validation from external sources. The practice of silence is also a lesson in patience. In a world obsessed with immediate response and gratification, waiting, observing, and choosing not to react is countercultural. It requires courage to resist the pressure to prove yourself, to defend your position, or to justify your choices. But in that patience lies mastery. By cultivating silence, you cultivate the ability to endure, to observe, and to act with the full weight of intention rather than the shallow force of reaction. Silence, ultimately, is the foundation for control. It allows you to navigate the complexities of life with clarity, precision, and authority. It shields your energy, amplifies your presence, strengthens your influence, and enhances your strategic thinking. It is not a passive retreat, it is an active, deliberate, and powerful choice. Those who master silence find that they no longer need to react to prove themselves. They no longer give away their power to the whims of others. They no longer allow the chaos of the world to dictate their inner state. They speak when it serves their purpose, act when it advances their goals, and remain still when the situation calls for observation, calculation, and preservation of energy. This mastery of silence is what separates those who live as victims of circumstance from those who live as architects of their destiny. Silence is the calm eye in the storm, the unshakable center in a world of turbulence, and the quiet force that shapes outcomes far beyond the reach of reaction. Through deliberate practice, mindfulness, and conscious restraint, silence becomes second nature. It becomes a shield against distraction, a tool for influence, and a pathway to inner freedom. Every choice to remain silent rather than react strengthens the habit, builds the muscle of self-control, and compounds into a life of strategic power. Calm authority and unstoppable momentum energy is the most precious resource you possess, yet it is the one most people squander without awareness. Every thought, every emotion, every action consumes it. The quality of your energy determines the quality of your life. If your energy is scattered, wasted on trivial conflicts, petty arguments, or the constant drama of others, you are powerless regardless of how intelligent, talented, or skilled you may be. Protecting your energy is not optional, it is essential. Energy is not just physical stamina, it is mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual focus. It is the fuel that powers your decisions, your creativity, your relationships, and your resilience. When you allow your energy to be hijacked by negativity, gossip, resentment, or distraction, you compromise everything that matters. Most people are energy bankrupt because they have not learned to guard it. They give it freely to anyone who demands attention, who provokes them, or who seeks to manipulate them. They react to every insult, every criticism, every challenge, and every trivial irritation, not realizing that with each reaction, they are bleeding themselves dry. Protecting your energy begins with awareness. You must first notice where your energy is going, how it is being spent, and who or what is draining it. Observe how certain people, situations, or even your own habits leave you depleted. Notice the patterns in your life where energy is wasted in reaction rather than invested in creation, growth, or strategic action. Awareness without action is incomplete, so the next step is setting boundaries. Boundaries are not limitations on life, they are protections for your energy. They define what you will and will not tolerate. They determine who is allowed to occupy your mental and emotional space and under what conditions. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect, a way of telling the world that your energy is valuable and not available for indiscriminate consumption. Learning to say no is an essential part of energy protection. The word no is not negative, it is liberating. It frees you from distractions, drains, and obligations that do not serve your higher purpose. Every time you say no to something that would deplete your energy unnecessarily, you are preserving your power for the moments and actions that truly matter. Another critical component of protecting your energy is choice of association. The people you interact with directly influence your energy levels. Negative, toxic, or reactive individuals act like energy vampires, drawing from your reserves without giving anything meaningful in return. Surround yourself with those who uplift, inspire, and challenge you constructively, not destructively. By consciously choosing your associations, you control the flow of energy in your life, ensuring it is directed toward growth, influence, and fulfillment rather than drained by chaos, criticism, or drama. Protecting your energy also involves controlling your attention. Your mind is a vessel, and attention is the water that fills it. Where attention flows, energy follows. If you allow your focus to be dominated by social media, negative news, or the trivial matters of others, your energy will dissipate, leaving you exhausted and reactive. Mastery of attention means deliberately choosing what to focus on and refusing to let external noise dictate your mental state. Energy is further protected by emotional mastery. Emotions are powerful energy currents that, if unchecked, can either fuel your progress or drain you completely. Anger, fear, resentment, and jealousy are energy-consuming states. When you allow yourself to dwell in them, you become weaker, slower, and more reactive. By acknowledging these emotions without surrendering to them, by observing them and redirecting their force into productive action or releasing them entirely, you conserve energy and maintain clarity. Physical health is also a cornerstone of energy management. The body and mind are inseparable, and neglecting your physical well-being drains your energy reserves. Proper nutrition, sleep, movement, and hydration are not optional. They are investments in your energy. A strong, healthy body supports a focused mind, amplifying your capacity to act with precision and control rather than react from depletion. Beyond physical and emotional energy, mental energy must be safeguarded. The mind is easily distracted by cluttered thoughts, unnecessary worry, overthinking, and reactive thinking. A disciplined mind, practiced in focus and clarity, preserves mental energy for tasks that advance your purpose rather than dissipating it on trivial matters. Techniques such as journaling, meditation, and strategic planning are powerful tools for managing mental energy, allowing you to prioritize, strategize, and act with intention. Protecting your energy also requires letting go of the need to control everything externally. Many people waste vast amounts of energy trying to manage others' perceptions, actions, and opinions. This is a futile expenditure because you can only truly control yourself, your thoughts, actions, and responses. By redirecting energy from attempting to control the uncontrollable toward mastering your own internal world, you exponentially increase your power and influence. Another critical principle is selective engagement. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every criticism requires justification. By choosing carefully where to invest your energy, you amplify its effectiveness. Every engagement should be purposeful, strategic, and aligned with your long-term objectives. Energy spent on trivial or reactive matters is energy lost forever, while energy invested with intention compounds into momentum, influence, and achievement. Visualization and mental rehearsal are also powerful ways to manage and direct energy. When you spend time imagining outcomes, rehearsing strategies, and mentally preparing for challenges, you are using your energy proactively rather than reactively. This mental investment conserves energy in real situations by reducing hesitation, confusion, and wasted effort. Protecting energy also means cultivating resilience. Life is full of unavoidable drains, unexpected challenges, setbacks, and difficult people. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly, to absorb disruption without permanent loss, and to maintain focus and composure under pressure. A resilient person does not squander energy on prolonged frustration or despair. They channel it into problem solving, learning, and action. Ultimately, energy protection is about self-mastery. It is the conscious management of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual resources to maximize effectiveness, clarity, and influence. Those who master their energy live above the chaos. They do not react to every provocation. They do not drain themselves in futile conflicts, and they do not allow external circumstances to dictate their internal state. They operate with precision, focus, and power, preserving their energy for the actions that truly matter. When you protect your energy, you gain freedom. Freedom from unnecessary stress, freedom from the manipulation of others, freedom from the fatigue of constant reaction. With energy intact, your decisions are sharper, your actions are more powerful, and your influence is far-reaching. Protecting energy is not about isolation or avoidance. It is about strategic preservation and deliberate action. It is about understanding that every interaction, every thought, every reaction costs you energy, and that once it is spent, it cannot be reclaimed. By mastering this principle, you position yourself to achieve more than those who constantly surrender their energy to chaos, drama, and distraction. In practice, energy management can be cultivated through consistent habits, daily reflection on energy expenditures, mindful pauses before reacting, selective engagement with people and situations, deliberate focus on meaningful tasks, and regular restoration practices such as rest, meditation, or creative expression. Each conscious choice strengthens your capacity to maintain energy, to act decisively, and to remain unshakable regardless of external pressures. Those who understand the value of energy realize that true control in life comes not from dominating others, but from mastering themselves. By protecting, preserving, and directing energy wisely, you operate from a place of strength, clarity, and influence, while the reactive, drained, and distracted world moves around you. Unaware of the power you quietly wield, responding with strategy rather than emotion is the hallmark of those who control their lives rather than being controlled by them. Most people operate on autopilot, reacting instinctively to every insult, challenge, or provocation without ever pausing to consider the consequences of their actions. Reaction is the language of the unmastered mind. Strategy is the language of the master. To respond strategically means to act deliberately, with full awareness of the potential outcomes, rather than being swept away by fleeting emotions. Emotion is powerful, but it is transient. Anger flares and fades, fear rises and falls, excitement surges and diminishes. If you allow these temporary forces to dictate your actions, you surrender control to external circumstances and to the whims of your own physiology. Strategy, on the other hand, is grounded in foresight, clarity, and intention. It considers the long-term effects of every action, weighs risks against rewards, and aligns every response with your ultimate objectives. Strategic response requires the cultivation of patience. The impulsive mind wants immediate gratification, instant reaction, and immediate relief from discomfort. The strategic mind understands that the world unfolds in complex patterns and that every decision carries ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate moment. By pausing before responding, you create the space to analyze, reflect, and choose the action that serves your purpose rather than your temporary emotional state. To respond strategically, you must first cultivate self-awareness. Awareness of your triggers, your patterns, and your habitual reactions is essential. You must know where you are likely to react impulsively and why, so that you can interrupt the automatic response and insert conscious choice. Self-awareness allows you to observe your emotions without being consumed by them, to acknowledge the rise of anger, fear, or irritation without surrendering your power, and to decide deliberately how best to respond. Strategic response also involves understanding the motives and behaviors of others. People act according to their own desires, fears, and limitations. Most provocations, insults, or conflicts are not truly about you. They are reflections of the other person's state of mind. By analyzing the situation with detachment, you can separate yourself from the drama, identify the true dynamics at play, and choose a response that maximizes your advantage rather than exacerbating the conflict. Control over emotion is a prerequisite for strategic response. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing feelings. It means channeling them constructively and preventing them from dictating your actions. Anger, for example, can be a fuel for focused action if harnessed intentionally, but it is destructive when allowed to drive reactive outbursts. Fear can sharpen your awareness and enhance preparation if acknowledged without panic. Strategic response transforms emotional energy into purposeful action rather than chaotic reaction. Another key aspect is the cultivation of foresight. Every action triggers consequences, some immediate, some delayed, some obvious, and some subtle. Those who respond without strategy rarely consider these consequences. They speak and act impulsively, creating complications they cannot control. Strategic responders anticipate outcomes, evaluate alternatives, and select the course of action that produces the highest benefit with the lowest unnecessary cost. They operate with a map in mind, not just a reflex. Strategic response also requires discipline and communication. Words are weapons. They carry weight and create reality. A careless remark can ignite conflict, damage reputation, or squander influence. A considered statement, delivered at the right moment, can persuade, disarm, and position you for advantage. Those who master strategic response understand the power of timing, tone, and context. They speak to serve their objective, not to vent or react. In practice, strategic response means mastering the pause. The pause is the most powerful tool available to anyone seeking to control their life. In that brief moment between stimulus and action, you regain control, step outside the automatic reaction, and choose a deliberate course. The pause allows you to consider the stakes, assess the environment, and select the action that aligns with your goals. Over time, the habit of pausing strengthens your overall mastery, making reactive impulses less frequent and strategic choices more natural. Strategic response also incorporates adaptability. Situations are rarely static, they evolve, shift, and present new information continuously. Responding with strategy means staying flexible, adjusting plans as necessary, and avoiding rigid attachment to preconceived reactions. Adaptability ensures that your responses remain effective even in unpredictable circumstances, reinforcing your control rather than surrendering it to external variables. Empathy and understanding are additional tools for strategic responders. By accurately reading others' intentions, emotions, and pressures, you can tailor your responses to achieve the desired outcome. This does not mean manipulation, it means applying insight to create the most effective response. Strategic action considers both self-interest and context, recognizing that control is maximized when actions are thoughtful, timely, and precisely aligned with reality. Furthermore, responding with strategy requires letting go of ego-driven reactions. Most impulsive reactions are rooted in pride, defensiveness, or the need to assert superiority. Strategic response transcends ego. It does not react for validation, revenge, or to prove a point. It acts from a place of composure, clarity, and alignment with larger objectives. This detachment allows for decisions that are wiser, more impactful, and far-reaching than those dictated by ego or fleeting emotion. Strategic response also relies on preparation. The more you anticipate scenarios, rehearse responses, and develop frameworks for decision-making, the less you are forced to react blindly. Preparation turns uncertainty into clarity, fear into confidence, and chaos into opportunity. Those who respond strategically are rarely caught off guard because they have trained themselves to anticipate, evaluate, and act with precision. Resilience is intertwined with strategic response. Challenges, provocations, and setbacks are inevitable, but the strategic responder does not collapse under pressure. They view obstacles as information, feedback, and opportunities to adapt rather than triggers for impulsive reaction. This perspective transforms adversity into a tool for growth rather than a drain on energy or a source of chaos. Ultimately, responding with strategy rather than emotion is the practice of mastery in real time. It is the art of maintaining control in situations designed to provoke, destabilize, or distract. It is the ability to convert potential triggers into opportunities for decisive, effective, and purposeful action. It is the difference between being reactive, tossed by the tides of circumstance, and being proactive, steering your life toward outcomes you choose. Practically, strategic response can be cultivated through habits, pausing before action, reflecting on past reactions to identify patterns, rehearsing potential scenarios, practicing mindfulness, and maintaining clarity of purpose in every interaction. Every deliberate pause, every considered word, every intentional choice strengthens the habit, transforming reactive tendencies into deliberate mastery. When mastered, strategic response liberates you from the tyranny of circumstance, emotion, and other people's provocations. It allows you to act with authority, influence, and precision. It ensures that your energy, focus, and decisions are spent on outcomes that truly matter, while the reactive, emotional, and impulsive world moves around you, unaware of the control you quietly maintain. Those who respond strategically are not driven by chaos, insult, or immediate impulse. They are driven by clarity, foresight, and deliberate intent. Their actions are measured, their influence is amplified, and their lives are directed rather than buffeted by the whims of the external world. Every moment of choice becomes an opportunity to assert control, to conserve energy, and to act in alignment with purpose. Responding strategically transforms ordinary individuals into masters of circumstance, architects of destiny, and unshakable forces in a world that constantly attempts to provoke reaction, confusion, and impulsivity